Hey everybody, Scott Parisian here from Scriptwriter Pro. Welcome to our live event. We're going to be asking some questions and talking shop today, so here we go. Just want to welcome everyone who hasn't been here before. If there are people in here who have been on before and have asked questions and I've answered them, then I'm happy to do so. If you ask questions and I didn't get to them, I apologize. We try to get through as many questions as possible. Desiree is doing the job of trying to ask the questions we haven't heard before so that we get a nice consistent flow of new information. Our first Facebook Live that we did a number of weeks ago is up on our YouTube page, so feel free to go check that out. And we will be continuing to put these Q&As up on that YouTube channel, as well as a lot of new content that we're going to be setting up there in the coming weeks and month ahead. So watch for that. All right, so here we are. I'm a screenwriter like you. I'm a mid-level writer. I am a working writer. I deal with producers, management, clients, other writers. I mentor here with Scriptwriter Pro. I consult. I do notes. I do anything to do with screenwriting. That's my life. So welcome. Feel free to start asking questions. Desiree is going to pick some. She's going to drop them off. She's going to read them out loud, and then I will do my best to answer. We're going to go about 30 to 45 minutes, something like that, depending how many people stop in, how many questions are asked. And if you find this informative and you're enjoying what you're seeing, feel free to pass it on to your other writer friends in your life, your colleagues, different people that you think might make use of this, all right? And I'm not an expert. I'm a writer like you. I know my stuff from doing it for so many years, and I just try to make sure that I can answer questions and give information that you may not find easily elsewhere. So, Desiree, do we have any questions?
Yeah. Hey, guys. We actually have a question from Amelia here. Amelia says, when a producer loves your spec script and asks you to develop it with them without development pay and without an agreement, could they potentially take writing credit for providing development notes or do anything shady with it? The script is of course copyrighted, but what if the plot changes significantly? Does it need to be recopyrighted?
Okay, that's a really good question, and you will find that every time. These days, I've said it before, producers don't want to pay anything until they have to, right? It's the film business. You're getting money to develop things on the hopes that they'll turn into something. And so you don't want to dish out money if you don't have to yet. And that puts the writer in a crappy position because we've already put all that time and energy into it, and other people are expecting us to put more. So you have to be careful with where you choose to put that. But if you have a producer who wants you to develop something further and they're interested in it, you have to go with your gut and not worry about what that writing credit may be. When it comes to writing credits on films, there's two tiers. One tier is the higher end, where it's a WGA signatory production company. So that means that a producer has signed the agreement with the WGA that they will pay whatever their rules say. They will follow those rules. In those movies, the actual Writers Guild goes through every single draft of a screenplay from the beginnings to the final filmed product to decide who gets credits for what amount of work, okay? But if it's on outside of the WGA, that producer, they can give you whatever credit you guys decide on. Okay, so if you are going to do some sort of agreement, like an option, and then they want to develop it further, in that option agreement, you would just make sure that it spoke of how you will retain sole writing credit if no other writer is brought on board, that kind of stuff, right? So you're going to make sure that you have, your own self-interest in mind, right? So if you feel you want to develop it further, that producer's probably not going to try to get a writing credit. They're just wanting to try and get the script to a place where they can get that investment to get it made. So you have to trust your gut on whether or not you want to invest that time. It's a personal choice. You're the one who has to do the work. It depends on how you want to take that road. If you don't have a rep to advise you, then just be honest with yourself with what you want to achieve. So I hope that answers that.
Awesome. We have a question here actually from Jen. How do you know your script is ready to be shared? As a novelist, I find that I do far more tinkering with a script than I do with a book.
Sharing your work is tough. Sharing your work is imperative, though. It's impossible to write in a bubble and stay there forever. Yes, there'll be the odd script that comes out. It'll, not been read by anyone. It's the first or second draft, and it goes somewhere. But film itself isn't in a bubble. It's a collaborative process. So as soon as you feel your script is at a stage where you just want to make sure it's working, whether that's in an outline stage, where you give it to some people to read, whether it's that very first draft and you just want to see what works and what doesn't, or you want to wait a few drafts, the earlier you can do it, the better it's going to be for you, okay? Because feedback is important. In a novel, you usually wait till the very end and then have your beta readers read it. But in a script, there's so many stages to things. You can take your first act and give it to someone and say, hey, does this make you want to read more? Any chance you can find someone with valuable feedback that tells you what isn't working, what they didn't feel, is going to be your best source of feedback. So it's, again, like the other question and answer, it's a personal choice, but don't wait too long. If you hang on for something too long, you'll never get it done.
A follow-up actually, Scott, to that previous question about copywriting. Timothy asks, how do you copyright scripts? Is it with the Library of Congress as it is with music recordings?
Yes, you can copyright with the Library of Congress. It's as a literary document. You can register it as well with the Writers Guild of America. WGA West, they have a registration system. Some writers don't even register their script. I know working writers in the system who don't even register or copyright their script. They say, well, once I've written it and it's completed, it's mine. I own it, so it's copywritten. But always keep a paper trail, right? Anytime you send anyone something, make a copy of it, showcase the file that you sent, just to kind of protect yourself. So, few ways to do it.
Awesome. I'll mention here too at this time, Scott, that people can share this video as well here. They can share the live, and this question period we're going to try to do every Thursday here on Facebook. So I just want to mention here what Richard, or I guess ask a question from Richard. Richard says, after receiving excellent coverage on my feature, which I'm pretty sure was from you, should I submit my rewrite to the same reader to note improvements or another reader for fresh eyes? Pros and cons.
Yeah, that's a good question. The pro about going with the same reader is they'll be able to answer what you've changed. Because a lot of times when you make one change, even though it doesn't specifically have to do with 6 other things, it can affect 6 other things. I'll see scripts all the time where they change a major factor, and then I'm commenting on a lot of the things that are working now that they never even touched. But because they fixed that one thing, it corrected the others. So that can help in a development process. Our mentorship program is great for that because you get a consistent follow-up and a consistent conversation about how your script is developing, right? So if you're looking for that kind of like, not hand holding, but just, leading you along and helping you progress, that's a great option. Another reader's eyes is also great to put for your second draft because you're getting new insight, right? You're getting a brand new look. So that person gets it completely cold without no precursor, and they can see it for what it is. So there, I wouldn't say there's pros and cons to either. It's just a different way of doing it, a different approach. But just keep in mind, every single person sees a script a different way. So sometimes it's good to get those different views so you know what's working or not working on a consistent basis. But if you find a reader that you really connect with, that really understands your vision, your voice, what you're trying to do, that can be a good person to stick with too. So again, personal choice. You're not going to have any negative aspect of one or the other.
We have a question here from Summer. Summer asks, what is the best way to test a premise for a screenplay or television series?
Tell someone about it. Just tell them, even strangers, right? Standing in line at Starbucks and say, hey, just a question. So if someone told you that there was this movie coming out and this is what it was about, what would you think? right? Just to see the reaction. If you're not that kind of person, ask people you know. Go on Facebook, go on Twitter, go on whatever groups and friends and text people and just say, hey, if you saw this preview for a movie, what would you think? Also, you can just pretend you saw it for trailer. You can say, oh, I just saw this trailer about this movie. It did this and this and this. I can't wait to see it. See what they say. Right? But always stress test something. I have different people I stress test with. I have my kind of group of colleagues. My wife is my sounding board for everything. I will hit her with an idea, and once I see it in her face that it excites her, that's the one I go with, because she's very picky with what she'll think is a good idea that comes out of my mouth, as most spouses are.
Not picky. More that I'm knowledgeable.
Okay, she's very knowledgeable. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go with that.
We have a question from Tyson. Using a film package investor proposal, is it wise to use local talent as your proposed cast, or should you try to sell bigger, more accomplished names as directors, producers, and actors?
Yeah, I mean, so if you saw a preview, right, or someone told you about a movie that was coming out and it was starring Chris Hemsworth, you'd probably want to see it. If it said it's starring Steve Michael, and
who is Steve Michael?
Steve Michael, right? They're going to be like, whatever. So, you know, filling a script or a proposal with a bunch of actors that may be local but not interesting isn't going to do anything, because they're not going to be casting who you suggest anyways. That's out of your hands. You're the writer. You wrote it. Unless you're producing it, then you can do whatever you want. But you want to, you know, propose, this is a perfect role for so-and-so. If we can get this actress attached, it gives us more appeal, right? You just want to make them see the viability of your project. So you want to use faces that are recognizable. Overseas, you know, it doesn't matter, right? Overseas appeal is huge because that's where a lot of money comes from, even for small pictures, okay? So if you can put a face that's recognizable on a movie poster that sells overseas, and then they give you $1 million because they can see they'll make that based on that face on that poster, Michael Madsen or Bruce Willis or whoever, right? Like some face that people may not even know the name, but they go, oh, I know that. You know, that can allow that money to come in. So, you know, recognizable faces is going to be the best route.
A question here from Victoria we'll go with. What do producers look for in a green light worthy script?
Depends on the producer, really. I mean, they make every kind of movie, right? Every kind of movie now. So when it comes to what a producer's looking for, the answer is a great script, right? Something that engages them. I would say that above anything else, if someone were, you know, like your question, what do they look for? The one thing I say every producer looks for is an emotional connection to the script and the characters. That's what they're looking for. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter what you've written, all right? It doesn't matter how commercially appealing it is. If you don't feel something, whether it's happiness, dread, fear, anger, love, hope, whatever it is, if you don't feel something when you read a script, you're not going to be interested in spending years of your life on it. You have to connect with someone on a deep emotional level with your story. Doesn't matter the genre. They need to feel something. Even if it's the hairs on the back of their neck standing up and them feeling like they have to look behind their shoulder in a horror film. You have to emotionally grab them. Okay?
To kind of somewhat follow up with that, Jeffrey Ross asked the question, what do you think is more important in a screenplay, Scott? Character or plot?
A character. Always. Always. I mean, you have to have a good story, you have to have a good plot, but characters define that. Your plot doesn't define your characters. Okay? You have a truck coming and it's going to go through that intersection and there's a kid in the road and there's a person on the sidewalk. That character, that plot can happen to 20 different people. The character, depending on who they are at that moment, that defines your plot. Are they the kind of person who put themselves in front of that vehicle? Are they going to watch that kid get run over? Are they going to close their eyes and run to save themselves? That defines where your story goes. So you need to know who your characters are. Characters are everything. There's no such thing as too much character. Characters make movies and television. You don't come back every week to watch your favorite show because you want to see how the plot unfolds. You watch because you want to come and see what happens to the characters and the choices they make and how they have that plot unfold. Without characters, there's nothing. So have a great concept and a solid plot, but don't steer your characters through it. Let your characters steer it.
Question from Heidi. Heidi asks, using your ratings grid, how many solid or first class do we need to get a consider or a recommend? Can we even have a not bad? And how much difference is there between a consider and a recommend?
That's a really good question. So first of all, the ratings grid we have, there's 17 things on there. And that's just kind of a rundown of what's really working incredibly well, what's working really good, what might be holding it back, right? So for example, if you get a lot of, excellent and very strong check marks, and say your theme is low, right? Well, that just means that there wasn't much of a theme in the script that we could feel, but it doesn't mean your script isn't going to get a recommend, right? It depends. If your main characters is a weak and everything else is good, it's not going to be good enough, right? So we try to kind of balance that out and just kind of showcase what's working well. Usually, if you get all those X's in most of the X's in that first box, a lot in that second, that means your script is ready to be recommended for people to read, right? That it's worthwhile, it's worth their time, it may fit what they're looking for. Between a consider and a recommend, there's kind of like this middle ground that's a strong consider, meaning your script is pretty much ready to go, but here's a tiny little list of a few things that you can still look at to make sure it's not missing anything. But a consider to a recommend is a big jump, right? And at a consultant agency is a lot different than at a production company. If you put a stamp of a recommend on a script at a production company, you're risking your career on that. You're saying, I risk everything because this is perfect, right? That's why you don't see many of them. But at a consultant agency, a recommend for us means that be confident in this script. This is an excellent script. We can't see it getting any better than it is right now. We recommend it's ready to go. We would say this script is worth reading to anyone who wants to read it. That's kind of how it's seen, right? So a consider means you're on track, you're good, but usually if you have a consider, there will be a significant amount of things to change, but it means that your script is already strong, okay? But recommend means that it's undeniable. That's the big difference.
Question about pay. What is the percentage a produced screenwriter is allowed realistically to negotiate versus an emerging screenwriter? For example, a produced writer 2 to 5% maximum, or emerging writer 1 to 2%. Is there such a thing as percentage?
Yeah, the percentage is however little the producer feels they can get away with. That's the real answer, right? I mean, you have bargaining power in the idea that this is your script. You own it. They can't make this movie without you. If they really want it and you say, I need 5% of the budget, then that's what you stick with, and you stick to your guns. And if they pass, they pass. You have to put a brick wall up and say, this is where I won't compromise, right? It comes out of the project. I have a project right now that has a lot going on with it. There's a lot of people involved. There's people attached. There's momentum. It's building. But nobody has any rights to it but me. There's nothing signed anywhere. And you see that a lot in projects. But that also, gives you a bargaining power because there's a lot involved in writing on it and you still own it. So you have bargaining power. But at the beginning of your career, you almost got to take what you can get, right? If someone's going to give you 3% of the budget and it's a $1 million movie, well, you're going to get, I don't know, I'm really bad at math, $3,000, right? Maybe not, I don't know math. $30,000? I don't know. I'm embarrassing myself. I'll ask my daughter later. But it depends on the budget, right? A small budget film may only be $100,000, $200,000. So a 2% of that isn't really anything, right? And as you get those higher budget, it's usually WGA. There's minimums they have to go with. So, keep in mind where you'll stop. If someone offers you a $2,000 gig to write a script and that's way too low for you, then don't take it. if it's a great starting point, you're excited about the project, take it. It's up to you. You're the one who controls everything. You can't be desperate about it, okay? You need to be confident and put value in yourself or nobody will. I always think of the Joker in Batman in The Dark Knight. And he says, if you're good at something, never do it for free. So if you are good and it's a good project, don't give it away. Fight for something. But there's no set percentage except the least amount possible on their side.
From Nicholas Scott, we have a question. Is it wise to share the script, the presentable draft, with potential investors, or just a treatment and lookbook?
I'm assuming, well, it depends if it's for TV or film with what you've got for materials. But listen, it's all about the script. Everything comes down to the script. So people will want to read the script. They may ask to also see the lookbook or the pitch deck. Usually not a treatment. It's usually they want the script because everyone knows in the business, people in the business know that it's all about the script. You can have a great idea, you can tell someone about it in a one-page synopsis, and it might seem, okay, this is exciting, but no one's going to start putting money down and get involved till they actually read that script and they see that you know what you're talking about. Execution is everything. So you're always going to want to send that script, but if you are putting a package together because you're wanting to produce yourself or be part of that or bring value to a higher level producer and get certain things attached, then you want to have extra supplementary product, right? You want to have a lookbook or a pitch deck or a Bible if it's a TV show, stuff like that. So, but the script, you got to have a script because everything counts on that.
Question from James. James says, Scott, do you ever conduct a table read during script development?
Yeah, I have. I don't do it all the time, but I sometimes you got to hear it out loud because in your head, especially when it comes to your characters, no one knows your characters like you. You know them inside and out. You know their voice. But sometimes it's interesting because if you give someone your script, even if it's just you and your friend or your spouse or something, reading it out loud to record it, to listen back, it's uncanny how some of those lines come across to other people. And you get an idea of, okay, well, I don't want the reader to think it comes out like that, right? I want it to come out a very specific way. And a lot of that will depend on the background, how you set up things before a character speaks. So doing a table read and recording it so you can listen to it back, it does help. It does help. And it's a table of a dozen or a half dozen people who can also give you their feedback. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword for you to wield, right? So I would recommend them if you can pull it off even over Zoom, right? You just get your script to people that are interested and want to have a fun night and do it.
Darius says, regarding representation, how do you get a literary rep as a new writer? What are the perks of having a literary rep, and what do they do?
Okay, that's a good question. So, I mean, we've answered before different ways to get a literary rep in some of our other videos that you can take a look at and just go on Facebook to see. But, you have to query them. You have to look for their addresses, look for their info, find opportunities to vet yourself and get yourself out there, okay? A literary rep, there's three kinds. First is an entertainment lawyer. They're the person who, if you get a deal in place, they can put it through for you. They can read the paperwork, make sure you're not getting screwed over and everything is good, right? And pay them or a commission or whatever. Then you've got an agent, and an agent is all about the sale. They are the ones who send your script out to potential buyers and move it around town and get it to contacts as a sales piece, right? This is what we are trying to sell, okay? Agents, you usually can't get one unless you get a package put together or something happens where it lands in their lap from another source that is saying, hey, this is the hot next product, sign up, right? A manager is two things. It's a manager, but it also can be a producer. So you'll find a lot of management want to produce as well. So they will get in on that level of repping someone, working on that script, helping develop it because they want to make that movie. And the perk there is that if they go on as a producer for a film, then they get paid by that film, not by you. So your commission doesn't go to them because they've chosen to be a producer instead. But a manager is the perk to having a manager is they will help you develop. An agent doesn't really do that. They'll read your script and maybe give you some feedback and try and sell it. But a manager is on there, boots on the ground, helping you develop, challenging you, questioning you, pushing you to create a really good product. So that's what a great manager does. That's the perk of finding a manager that is able to do that for you. So you're not writing in that bubble with no idea if something's working.
We have about 20 minutes here or so left. Just get to a couple short questions here. So James says, what's the difference between a reader and a script consultant?
Well, same thing, essentially. A reader is someone who reads your script. Consultant is someone who reads your script and gives you notes on it, gives you development advice and suggestions to move it forward, right? A reader can be at a contest, at a company, at an agency. It's just anyone who's that person reading the script to see if it's worthwhile. Consultant gives you feedback.
John Allen says, what percentage of scripts that you read would you say are actually recommend? What percentage are considers and passes?
If this is the John Allen that's my mentorship client, hey John, look out for this guy. He's good. He's good. So what percentage get recommends? Is that the question?
That's the first part. Recommends, then considers and passes.
Recommends, I'd say like 1% or less. Considers a good amount. We don't use the word pass because we're not some company who's buying things. We use the term development needed because it just needs more development, right? It's not ready yet. But I'd say consider, from what I read personally, I say that more of my scripts get considers or considers with reservations, which means still needs work but really good, than the development needed. And I think that's just, especially over each year it gets better. Writers are getting better, which is hard for everyone because there's more good content out there. It's changed over time. There's more tools at your disposal to make yourself better. And so, but recommends are hard. Over like a year, I'll maybe give 3, maybe.
Christina says, is it a good idea to write short scenes and stories and pitch your work to executive producers at production companies? Is it great to create a website and put a director's reel on it?
Well, yeah, if you want to direct, definitely, because directing is a different thing than writing. Even if you're writing, directing together, it's a different. You have to prove yourself in a different way, right? In movies, the director is pretty much seen as everything, right? You have a movie made, and it'll say, a blank film. It's the director's film. It's not the writer's film. It just says screenplay by. So it's a completely different animal. As a screenwriter, it's kind of useless to have a website and a bunch of different supplementary stuff just bombarding because it's all about the writing and that project and that specific concept. So it's kind of fun and cool to have so you can show people, but it's about your script. That's what people care about, the words on the page.
If you sell your script, do you still get residual payment, and how does that work?
Residuals are all to do with the Writers Guild. So if you sell a script and it's a WGA production and you're going to get the minimum because they've signed the contract, you're going to make like, 85,000 plus, something like that is the minimum. And then it's a WGA contract, you will get a residual. But for writers, it's kind of pennies, right? It's not a lot unless it's like a Marvel movie. Then you're set, right? But, unless it's a WGA, no residuals. It's a one-time payment for your services.
Hey, we have for Shizzle on.
For Shizzle.
For Shizzle. Say that 3 times fast.
I'm going to name a character that.
For Shizzle.
Awesome name.
I copyrighted my script several years ago, and I found a new show in production with the same title and genre. Bum, 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 bum. What should I do?
Nothing. Just don't write it again. Forget about it and move on. They didn't steal your show, right? I knew someone once, and there was a show. I don't know the specifics. Probably not even saying it right, but there was a show called Baby Daddy, and it was about a guy who became a baby daddy because the woman had a baby and left him with it. Now he's a baby daddy. That's not a very specific concept, right? Probably 100 people have come up with that. And the title kind of speaks for itself. So unless you specifically sent your script to that company and you have proof that they read it and there's a number of plot devices that are exactly the same, then just move on. And it's not the only story you'll ever write. If it is, then just get out of the whole game. Keep writing stuff new.
Wolfman Mike asked the question. Mm-hmm. I love these names.
Yeah, good names.
Wolfman Mike. Yeah, he's going to be friends with whatever the other guy's name
was. For shizzle.
Yeah, for shizzle. Yeah.
Go for beers.
Okay, should you ever follow up with those who you have sent your script to? Or do you just send it off and wait to hear from them, if ever?
Okay, so first of all, send it off and just forget about it. Just forget that you ever sent it, right? Sitting on pins and needles waiting is just going to kill you. It is. Send it off. If they ask for it, send it off, forget about it. And then if they get back to you, it's a bonus, right? You can follow up. Wait at least a month. People are busy, right? Just because they ask for your script, it doesn't mean they're reading it right then. It goes under the 117 other scripts they got to read still. So just be patient. If they didn't want to read it, they wouldn't have asked for it. So obviously the concept, something about it excited them. Sometimes people just won't get back with a no, right? So sometimes not hearing anything is a no, but sometimes it took them 6 months to read it. So follow up, just respectfully, right? Be friendly about it, personable, and if they don't respond to the follow up, move on. And they may, and then you go from there.
Jerry asked the question, do you see any niche for a coming-of-age story with characters from a greater diversity?
Oh, totally. Write it. Everyone loves coming-of-age movies. Everybody. They never go away. That's a genre in and of itself. Doesn't matter. Horror, comedy, drama, Western. They can all be coming-of-age stories, right? Diversity is huge right now. Huge. And that's great because people are finally saying enough is enough. We need stories for more than just white people. We need stories for everybody. All cultures, all ethnicities, all genders, all sexualities. They all need to be represented in entertainment products. So there are more and more producers looking for these kinds of stories. Looking for any stories. Make sure you have diversity in every story you have. I had an argument once with someone how I said, okay, well, there's only white people in your story, and it takes place in California. Why are there only white people in Los Angeles? And they argued tooth and nail why these characters had to be white. And I just said, okay, well, good luck. Because if you don't understand that, first of all, you have a problem as a human being, but you should, as a writer, you should want to celebrate all types of stories for all types of people. So yes, coming-of-age stories, everyone loves them. A diversity across the board.
Heidi asked the question, are there any of your scripts available online for us to read and learn from?
No, I don't put my stuff just out online. You can watch. You can see my movie that was produced. It's called Foxter and Max. It's in Ukrainian. There's a subtitled version, and you can find it online. And it's a fun movie. Watch with your family. But if you ever want to see a sample of what I do, just send me an email. I'm happy to send you a script to see what I do. I share all my scripts with my mentorship clients so that they can, make a decision of whether or not I'm someone they want to listen to. But yeah, Scott at scriptreaderpro.com. Feel free to send me a message. Check out our services as well. I have no problem sharing my scripts. I'm not a paranoid writer. I know no one's going to steal them. I just don't post them because there's no need to. So, keep that in mind.
Ricardo asked the question, I submitted my script for an evaluation. Is it a good idea to pay for a mentor to tighten the script?
Okay, yeah, that's our script doctor service. And the value of that is really dependent on you, on yourself, right? I mean, we're all professional screenwriters. We've been doing this a long time. We've been paid to do it. Everyone has their own style. So, look into the different people and see who is good at what, who that offers this service. It's something that I do as part of our team. And it definitely can take your story and elevate it, right? If you're not quite sure how to make it any better, if you're just not at that level yet, it's a great learning tool as well, right? Because not only do you get a draft that should be ready to go out to people, but you can look at those differences and you can see what was done and actually then apply that to your future products, right? So it's kind of like a perfect storm of elevating your craft and your product at the same time. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely worthwhile, I think, if you're at that place where you want to cross that line.
Suzanne says, at what point do you decide to do a complete rewrite after a few reviews?
It comes down to passion for the story. Okay? If you've written a script a number of times and you keep getting reviews and people say, I don't like it, or I can't see it as a movie, or that kind of thing, it just may be not the best story. It may not be a movie. Not every story makes a good movie. And I talk about that in one of our upcoming YouTube videos about storytelling for movies, storytelling for TV. Not every idea fits a television world or a movie world. So if you're getting that reaction that's just not good, just move on to your next project, because that screenplay isn't the only one you will write. And every script you write, most of the time, is going to be better than your last one. So test out your ideas on people, get feedback on your writing, do things to elevate your writing, take online classes, schooling, read more screenplays, read, sign up for possibly our mentorship program so that you can get the right tools to move yourself forward with every page.
Two of these questions actually go hand in hand. One from Richard, the other from Calvin. Can you talk a bit about naming your screenplay? And then Calvin says, when it comes to character names, what do you recommend and how do you end up naming them?
That's a good craft question. Titles, tricky. Titles, be careful, because you want to find something that really works. So I'll just go through a couple options of mine, because I think titles are incredibly important. They need to set the tone and let you know kind of what movie you're in. And if it can't do that, at least make someone go, I wonder what that's about. So like my horror movie I wrote, it's called Mine. And it takes place in a mine. There's a mine collapse. But the concept of the movie is the miners come out and something down there touched them and it's calling them back. And it's saying, no, you're mine. You don't get to go. So there's a double meaning in that title, which makes it layered and has depth. I was looking for a script I wrote. It's called Incision, but it was originally called The Med Student. And incision seemed to be such a great word that just immediately puts an image in your head. You know, it's not a comedy. It's not probably a drama. It's not a Western, right? There's something thrilling about that. I had a script about a serial killer who was kidnapping women who all looked this kind of similar, and they all had the same kind of face as Cleopatra. And so it was called Finding Pharaohs. And people kind of responded to that because they were like, what's that about? It later changed to being called Unraveled because I wanted kind of a catchier word. And it made a lot of sense. So titles should be more than just, they should fit. I read a lot of scripts where I go in thinking it's one type of story and it's nowhere near that. So throw a dozen titles at someone and say, hey, what excites you? That's the best way.
And character name? And
character names, just be creative. Don't be so over the top that every single character's got some weird long name, unless it's like a sci-fi world of new things. But, just try and make sure the names fit. If you're going to name a guy Jack, make sure he's like 40 plus. Because not many people name their kids Jack in the last 20 years, right? Just make sure it fits who they are. Just don't name, Jack and Joe and Jane and Jim and Johnny. Don't name all your characters with the same first letter. Don't name them all with one syllable. Mix it up.
When it comes to format and structure, are there things that you do out of the norm? For example, Tony Gilroy with double dashes. Corey is asking this question.
I use double dashes. I didn't know Tony Gilroy did that. That's cool. I use double dashes. I must have read it in one of his scripts or somewhere along the line, but I love double dashes for action because it just, boom, it bounces you from one to the next to the next to the next. I use double dashes. I use a lot of capital letters, not just for sound, but when I want something to slap someone in the face, I'll use capitals. I'll use italics when I need to. Some writers will write every action on one line and just be one. They won't go longer than a line at a time. I tend to use 2 and 3 lines at a time because I set a very specific mood when I write. I write in a very cinematic way. I try to use a lot of visuals that speak to the moment. This book I just got, Hollywood Standard, Christopher Riley. This is the latest version, 3rd edition, and pick it up because I was flipping through it, and it makes everything so simple and easy. Don't do weird formatting. Everyone hates weird formatting. Don't let a reader have a reason to fall out of the flow of your story. Okay? Use format. Make it work for the moment. Just don't be weird to be weird.
Timothy asked the question, and is there a good resource to find screenwriters to collaborate with, a hub or site of some kind?
That's tricky. You got to trust the person you're writing with.
Or sharing.
Yeah, it's more about connecting with other writers, just connecting with them. And then when you find that personality or that style that's similar to you or exciting to you, I just started a new script with a writer that I fell in love with the writing. And then they said, hey, I want to write a horror movie. Do you want to do something together? And I said, in a New York minute. But I've never co-written. I've co-written with one other person 15 years ago. Didn't work out, left a bad taste in my mouth. But you have to trust the person 100% and have the same kind of style or it just won't work.
Our buddy Jamie Nash is back.
Hey, Jamie.
Jamie's in the house. Woo, woo. In regards to diversity, the scripts I've been writing, I haven't defined each character's ethnicity within it. Recently, I've been trying to add descriptions that I feel best describe who they are personality-wise through an action they're doing. Going forward, do you feel I should be more overt with defining each character's ethnicity or allow the reader to inject their own views and image on the characters? And last thing, Jamie says, P.S. best hat so far.
I was going to say, you like my hat, Jamie? Okay, so ethnicity. Okay, this is tricky because unless you're saying every character is white, unless you're describing them white, Caucasian, obviously you're whitewashing your script. If you're leaving ethnicity out completely, it doesn't serve anything. If someone is white and grew up in a white household, in a white neighborhood, with all the privilege that provides, that character is going to be a specific character. They're going to speak a certain way, they're going to act a certain way, they're going to have a specific worldview. Someone who is another culture, whether it's African American, African, Egyptian, Arab, Latino, whatever it is, that character is going to have a different way of seeing the world. So ethnicity defines characters in a lot of senses, not in every sense. Your ethnicity doesn't define you. I'm not saying that. I'm saying growing up in a certain type of culture makes you a certain way. It makes you see things differently. I'm a white person. I cannot see the world the same as a black person. I cannot live that life. I cannot understand what they go through. I don't get looked at a certain way everywhere I go. So my character has to be white and that character has to be black if that's the view they have on the world. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't offend anyone. It's off the top of my head. But yeah, I would say define them. I mean, some people may say, well, don't make them a certain ethnicity because now we got to cast for that. Down the line, a producer, if they want to cast a different ethnicity, they're just going to change it, right? So write for impact and authenticity.
Well, that's 3:45 here.
All right. So thanks for joining us. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. We're having a blast doing this. Having a lot of fun. Thank my wife Desiree for finding all of the questions and doing all the tech stuff behind the scenes. Alex and Karina on the Script Reader Pro team for setting all of this up, for getting us going. I love talking to writers. I love giving people guidance and suggestions that may help them in some way. So we used to do Facebook one week, Instagram the next. We're just going to stick to Facebook now. We really enjoy the format, how we can upload it to our YouTube channel in the right kind of viewing range. And so every Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, time change coming soon. So make sure you keep that in mind. But share this and let people know if you're enjoying it. Keep giving us your feedback. Keep coming back for questions. Watch our videos. If you want to get in touch with me, email I gave out earlier. And thanks for coming. Keep writing. And as I always say, write hard. All right? Thanks again. We'll see you guys later.
Hey.
Yeah.
I want to mention one last thing.
Sure.
We didn't get a chance to answer everybody's questions.
Yes.
So I did make a point of screenshotting a few of you who we didn't have enough time with. So next Thursday we will be touching those questions first.
There you go. So if you ask questions that didn't get answered, we'll start out that next session with some of those. All right?
Okay, thanks.
Take care, guys.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you later. Bye-bye. Stay safe.